Hello, children. How are you all? I hope fine, taking good care of yourselves. We continue with the experiment of photosynthesis. Again, I want to remind you the first step is destarching, removal of starch from the leaves of a plant. Experiment 2, to show that sunlight is necessary for photosynthesis. So, what will I do? I will take a plant, keep it in a dark room for 24 to 48 hours. After that, I will select one of its leaves and cover it with black paper which has some design on it, like shown here in figure 6.6. So after covering with black paper, again I will keep the plant in sun. After a few hours, I will pluck that leaf and test that leaf for starch by the iodine test which I had done yesterday. What will I observe? I will observe that the part which was covered with black paper will turn brown, and the part which was left uncovered will turn blue black, showing the presence of starch. Look at this diagram. Initially, I had covered with black paper. After the starch iodine test, this part which was covered with black paper turns brown and the remaining parts turn blue black. So this proves that sunlight is a very important aspect for photosynthesis. Now I start experiment 3 to show that CO2 is necessary for photosynthesis. Again, I will take a plant and destarch it by keeping the plant in a dark room for 24 to 48 hours. Then, what will I do? Now, before keeping the plant again in sunlight, I will take a conical flask which has potassium hydroxide. Role of potassium hydroxide to absorb carbon dioxide. So in this flask now there is no CO2. Now through a split cork, I will insert half the leaf in the flask and half will remain out. So half will be in an atmosphere without CO2 and half will be outside where there is CO2. Now when I keep this plant in the sun and after some time when I test this particular leaf for starch, what will I observe? This part which was outside turns blue black. There was CO2, so there was production of starch. This part which was inside will turn brown, showing that CO2 is necessary for photosynthesis. They have modified this experiment by taking only one plucked leaf, and here there is source of water to keep this leaf alive for some time. Or else here, when I continue with the experiment, the leaf is attached to the plant. So this proves that CO2 is necessary for photosynthesis. Till now, we studied three factors: chlorophyll, sunlight, and CO2 are necessary for photosynthesis. In the next experiment, we will study that oxygen is released during photosynthesis. For this, I will take a water plant, Hydrilla or Elodia. Mind well, a water plant only. This will be under a funnel, and here there is a wooden support. The funnel is not directly touching the beaker. I will invert a test tube full of water over the stem of this funnel. This test tube is completely filled with water in the beginning. Then I will place this apparatus in sun. So after some time, bubbles start coming out from here, and here gas is present. When I test the gas, I observe that a glowing splinter burns into flames. This is oxygen gas which rekindles the glowing splinter. The most important requirement here is to take a water plant. So this will prove that oxygen gas is released during photosynthesis. Carbon cycle. You will learn this definition. It is a series of chemical reactions in which carbon as a chemical element in CO2 is removed from the air, used by the plants in its body process, and finally returned to the air. First, here it will be used by the plants, and then it is going to be passed from producers to consumers to decomposers. You see here CO2, 0.03 to 0.04% in the air. Photosynthesis is the only process which takes in CO2. Hence, it is life supporting process on earth. The green plants take in CO2. From producers to consumers to decomposers. During respiration, producers, consumers, decomposers release carbon dioxide again into the atmosphere. Next, fossilization of producers, consumers, decomposers may give rise to fossil fuels, and these on combustion, burning, will again release CO2. So CO2 is taken, used by the living organisms, returned back to the atmosphere. Draw this carbon cycle in your notebook. The questions for your experiments, I will be sending them, and you will do it in your practical files. With this, we end chapter photosynthesis. You will start with the review questions, the back exercise, do it thoroughly well. Make a star wherever you have doubts. We will surely solve them when we meet. Thank you.